Lakeland PBS presents Common Ground, brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota. Production funding of Common Ground is made possible in part by First National Bank Bemidji, continuing their second century of service to the community. Member FDIC. Welcome to Common Ground. I'm producer-director Scott Knudsen. In this two-segment episode, Debbie Center shares her music and photography, including that of the Northern Lights. Also, tour the art of downtown Little Falls with Heidi Jeub's Small But Noteworthy.
Hi, I'm Debbie Center, and I live in Nevis, Minnesota. I am able to stay at home and do a lot of photography of the incredible beauty that surrounds me here in Nevis, Minnesota, as well as write piano music and music for a little instrument called a zither. My father actually was a child prodigy violinist. He started playing the violin when he was 3. He started touring by the time he was 5. He grew up touring all over the place, had Juilliard teachers by the time he was 6, and was naturally a huge influence on my life there. So then I started piano lessons of my own when I was 7 years old, and grew up playing the piano and haven't stopped since. There's an old saying that says, music speaks where words cannot, and that's one of my favorite sayings. You can express so much more emotion and so many more messages through music, at least I can, than the actual spoken word. Not to mention it's incredibly relaxing to play. Recently I was pretty stressed out and somebody said, what can we do to get you to relax a little bit? And I said, well, I'm about to go play music with the band, Terrapin Brothers. That is the most relaxing, fun thing that I can think of to do. That's the epitome of music therapy for me. So this is a zither, otherwise known as a lap harp. And we bought one of these for our daughter when she was about 3 years old. They're incredibly easy to play. You just slip sheet music right underneath the strings, and the sheet music is sort of like a connect the dots. It's got lines in between all the different notes. So then when you just slip those right underneath the strings, but everything just lines up, shows you what notes to play where. So we brought one for our daughter when she was 3 years old. She could play it right away. Then she started taking it out in public, and people, adults included, would fight over who was going to get to play it next, because it's just really addicting because it's so easy. So all you do, if you just pluck right over the heads of the notes, you end up with, in this case, Jingle Bells. Voila. So really, really easy, makes it accessible to people no matter what kind of musical history they've had. Even ages. When I lived in Colorado, I could teach kids as young as 3 years old, and they could absolutely get it. I would teach adults. Some adults would actually burst into tears because they'd never been able to play an instrument before, and finally they can play an instrument, so they were really excited about that. So I've written 8 different books of music, and these have gone worldwide. It's insane. I can hardly keep up with the demand for these goofy things. They're in 43 countries so far, and I've sold about 15,000 copies in 8 years. If somebody wants to purchase one of these, they can just go to my website called worldofharmonymusic.com, and they can find out all about the zithers and the sheet music. The zithers are actually made by some dear friends of mine in South Carolina, and hand build them, handcrafted out of tonal hardwood, so they're a really nice, durable instrument. And yet they cost between $70 and $90, so they're really affordable. They're very committed to building a beautiful, high-quality instrument that's yet really affordable for anybody to get started. So you can actually see my little logo peeking out from the center of the sound hole on the instrument. We're business partners and do that. They build the zithers, I write the books, and away we go. Another thing that I really like doing living in Nevis, Minnesota, or in this area, lake life has really inspired me to write an awful lot of piano music. All instrumental music, but it is inspired by lake life, by the wildlife that I encounter here. One recent piece that I wrote, if I may show you, it's called Dance of the Song Sparrow. And something that I really enjoy doing is actually combining my photography with my music. So I will take pictures and then I'll actually use those for the sheet music covers for the music that I write. That's distributed by a company called Piano Pronto, which is out in California. So this particular piece, it was kind of funny. I kept hearing this little bird off in the distance. And this little guy had this whistle that went, and then he went, okay? And over I would hear in the woods, driving me nuts. I didn't know what this bird was because the woods are so thick, you can hear him, but you can't see him. Finally, one day, this bird landed, see that dead birch right out there with the real gnarly Disney, Disney branches on it? That bird landed in that tree. And I was ecstatic because I have a really good camera with a really good zoom. I was able to zoom in on him, get an actual video of him singing that song, threw it on Facebook, found out what this bird was. He's called a song sparrow, took a picture of him, and wrote a piece of music based on that little call. So I'm actually doing that call on the piano and then, a bunch of other stuff. So I do an awful lot of music like that. I've got music that's inspired by the calls of the loons, the calls of the chickadees. I've got music that's inspired by photographing the northern lights, all sorts of northern Minnesota music. So something that I'd always dreamed of doing is writing music that others might actually want to play, not just listen to, but play as well. I was able to make that come to fruition a couple of years ago. I wrote a bunch of pieces, and again, based on wildlife and nature from northern Minnesota here. And I had a recording guy come down from Bemidji, and he brought all of his equipment, and he brought it right into this room. And he brought all this acoustic treatment too. And he said, well, Debbie, just go ahead and start playing and I'll figure out, what sort of acoustic treatments we need to do here. So I start playing and his jaw dropped. And he says, oh my gosh, you've got perfect acoustics in this room. I don't need to do a thing. So we were pretty excited about that. So we recorded my entire C right here on my piano in my house. It was a wonderful way to do it. And here's the CD itself. It's called In Harmony Always, which has kind of become my own mantra, the way that I try to live my life in harmony with nature here. So In Harmony Always is the title of the CD, as well as one of the pieces of music on that CD. And the photography, this was a sunset one day that happened after one of those lovely summer storms here in northern Minnesota where we have tornado warnings. And I am a card-carrying tornado phobe. They just scare the daylights out of me. So I was hovering and shivering and carrying on and being just a wreck. And finally the storm passed and I went out into the yard, and that was the view. That's not Photoshop. That's not enhanced at all. The sky was that pink and that purple. Absolutely incredible. That was years ago. That was probably, I'll bet 15 years ago. And I remember thinking at the time, you know, if you can just be brave during something terrifying, sometimes you're rewarded with something really, really beautiful at the end. And I was. And I thought, what a cool story and what a cool picture to have on the cover of the CD that I'm gonna publish someday, even though I haven't written a single note. And it went back that far, the dream to actually do this someday. So I did. I wrote enough pieces for a CD. I recorded it. And then, again, this Piano Pronto that's out in California published the sheet music for all the different pieces on the CD. Honestly, that was a lot of torture for me to transcribe the music. That's very, very difficult, but I did it. And so that sheet music is now available too, in hard copy, matches the CD. So I was very, very proud of that. These are available online, as well as Schmidt Music carries them too. So any of the Schmidt Musics around the country, if you see those, you'll see the sheet music for the CD. And they carry the CDs too. Another thing that I really love about living here is all the photo ops. The photography is just so easy. People think I'm this great photographer. I'm not. I point, I shoot, I cross my fingers, and I get some really good stuff because it's just so beautiful here. I love photographing the sunrises, the sunsets. Happily, our view out here is due south. So I've got the sunrise right there and the sunset right over here. And this time of year, in the winter time, the sun is just crawling real low across the horizon. So you get the sun crawling across the lake all day long as well. So beautiful. And of course, the northern lights are my very favorite thing to photograph. Those are a lot more persnickety than the wildlife. I've been photographing the northern lights for 3 years now. I'm on a Facebook page that really helps me to learn all about the northern lights and when they're going to be out and how to capture them on camera and so forth. So for me, when I'm underneath a sea of stars, it's an incredibly spiritual experience. Typically I'm by myself. I'm on a very remote road because you don't want cars driving by because those will goof up your shot because we're dealing with long exposures. So you find a very remote place to photograph, and it's just fantastic to be under this sea of stars all by yourself. Typically, if the northern lights are going, that will trigger the loons. They will start calling. You'll hear coyotes that are calling. You'll hear owls that are hooting. The animals absolutely respond to the lights as much as I do. So it's a lot of fun. If someone is interested in learning more about the aurora or the northern lights, they might want to follow a Facebook page called Great Lakes Aurora Hunters. There's a lot of very generous people on that page that are more than happy to share photography tricks. You'll go on there and you'll see when the lights are going to happen. Not real far in advance, but they can usually predict them that day, maybe a couple of days. We actually get these storm warnings that give us a few days of notice. So at least that way we can kind of know, get out there, and then you get back on that Facebook page and the page absolutely blows up. One of the best things I've done is during the daytime, I'll go scouting for locations that I think are really interesting. Some sort of really cool foreground for the lights, you know. Maybe it's an old truck parked someplace, or some farm equipment, or a cool barn, something like that, a church. Man, that makes all the difference on a northern light photo, being something that's just kind of, yeah, those are northern lights, versus, whoa, look at that. That's what I want, is the whoa, look at that shots. When I'm out in nature, I just can't resist photographing it. I just really want to be able to share with friends all over the world what it's like to live here. The beauty that I'm seeing In particular, on Facebook these days, there's so much negative on there. And I feel like it's sort of my mission to try to counteract some of that negativity. So I post a lot of photography and a lot of music on there, just trying to cheer things up a little bit. When I take these pictures, I'm at home and I'm editing them. And then sometimes I'll actually set the picture on the piano in front of me, and a composition will come to me that seems to match what's happening in the photograph. So it's a nice way to really combine both of my passions of, photography and music together. Another little thing about shooting the Northern Lights, you're really not considered a good Northern Lights photographer until you've been hassled by the police at least once. I mean, you're out on a deserted road, you're by yourself, you're looking pretty suspicious out there. And so I've had the police come up, or Good Samaritans always come up too. They think you're stranded. What on earth would you be doing out there? The joys of shooting the Northern Lights.
I'm Heidi Jeub, and I'm an artist here in Little Falls, and today is Small But Noteworthy, a festival of small art and big ideas. All the artwork, visual art, is 9 by 9 inches or smaller, and then we have poetry, spoken word, and hip hop and music as our performance sort of sprinkled throughout the event.
Well, Small But Noteworthy could mean several things. We have a small town. We have a lot of great art in town, a lot of great artists. So it's small town. My friend Heidi's studio is a small studio. She came up with a great idea, since her space is small, to have artists create small pieces of art, small but noteworthy. When you are purchasing or thinking of buying art, it's a nice entry level size to get in on. So you can get a piece of original art for $30, and you may probably get to meet the artist as well today. So small but noteworthy means a lot of things.
My name is Matt Duckett. I'm the Exhibitions and Education Coordinator here at Great River Arts. Today is the second day of Small But Noteworthy art crawl and a series of events celebrating both visual and literary arts. So Small But Noteworthy is not only an art crawl that combines a number of galleries and restaurants and locations throughout Little Falls, but it's also a series of performances and celebrations of poetry and literary arts. And the object is to kind of combine the literary and visual realms, and also using performative arts like spoken word, even hip hop.
Some people call it an art crawl, where basically you're not literally crawling, but you're going from location to location, checking out the work that's there, maybe participating in activities, and then also hopefully supporting artists, whether it's by buying a ticket or possibly by buying some artwork, and just kind of exposing yourself to new things.
Like this. All right, so now choose your color.
What's great is that it features business owners who love the arts, but not necessarily that they sell art on a regular basis. So they're able to showcase that support, but in a new way. There's actually a few layers. I like to see the artists connect with the business owners, because I think we have more similarities than we think.
To me, small but noteworthy simply does just mean great small art in a small town with a rural arts center and a lot of cool shops, all participating together to make an art crawl that, we had not had an art crawl in this town before. And so I think it's awesome that Heidi has gotten this together, and the vision of small art is a reality. Well, I think Small But Noteworthy and an art crawl type event brings people together, whether they're artists or they're perhaps working in the venue that is hosting an event or showing some of the art. So it brings the artists, the community together, the performers together, the businesses together. So you may not have been to Starry Eyed Brewery, but I might go check it out because they have an event over there. And hey, why not try that out and see something different, do something different.
Well, I'm Anthony Elliott. We're at Elliott's Tattoo. We're participating in Small But Noteworthy. We've only done that once this year, but we like Heidi and we like to participate in things artistic-wise that you can find around this town because it seems like, you don't see much of that, especially, it's a small town. It's an opportunity to kind of talk with them, and, I find most often that not a lot of people know too much about tattooing. They only know it's permanent. So it's a chance to kind of slow them down and maybe educate them a little bit, especially in a small town. It's not like a big city where they have like 10 shops and everybody kind of understands that their styles and stuff, but maybe they think it takes hours, that we can tell them, well, that small thing's only gonna take 10 minutes. If somebody doesn't really understand art, it's a good opportunity to just talk about it. Maybe get people thinking about things that they wouldn't normally think about unless you kind of put them in a position where there's art on the walls, and it's an opportunity to talk to the guy making it. Sometimes we live in our own little art world, that we forget sometimes people don't know these things, and then you share them and you kind of get a positive reaction that you didn't anticipate because you just said something that you just live.
Small but Noteworthy, I think, is an opportunity for folks who don't normally engage with art to engage with art, or for us to get art into places that don't normally have a way to celebrate the arts. So it's kind of uniting some different kinds of businesses, some different kinds of people, and different places in people's lives, and just sort of giving us all a reason to celebrate it, and giving us a map to kind of trace that progression. So an event like this also just causes, there's just an energy, so there's artists exhibiting art that might not normally do it. There's places working together, there's conversations happening between folks that might not have that opportunity otherwise. And it just kind of gives the community a unifying energy and something to come together and celebrate and just participate in.
So what's cool about this Small but Noteworthy, as you may be able to see from my shop and my gallery, I have some large pieces in here. And when you have big walls, you want to have some big pieces. But I believe you can have as much art as you can fit on the walls or on the desks. And so small art and Small but Noteworthy, it's great to just trickle small pieces into my large shop amongst the large pieces. And again, it makes a great entry-level point for a new collector that might not have $1,000 to pay for original art, but can sure pick up some really neat things at a really great price here during a Small but Noteworthy art crawl.
One of the things that I think happens that might be different than other types of commerce-based events is that you get this really interesting new audience. In our town, we have a lot of events, but then not everybody participates. Sometimes they get out of Dodge and just don't participate at all. But this is something that even if it's a little bit softer in the audience, like there's not as many people, or they might be concentrated in one location or at one event, it's still, they're here specifically to engage in something new, right? So then the business owners get to also have that relationship where they're here for something else, but then they are able to say, well, I also sell bikes, but let's have a conversation about art instead. And then you kind of build trust in that sort of way as well, with a whole new body of people. And so I love seeing different types of art events, and not saying one has to be everything for everybody. It's just, this has a very specific type of demographic, but why not be specific? I know not everybody came, and I know that not everybody, switched around their calendar when they found out about it and decided to, oh wait, I want to support that. But I think that if they see that it's happening and they understand that there's something more than just what's usually, displayed or performed or whatever, then they're able to say that their community offers a lot of options. I recommend food joints to, for instance, our artists who are not necessarily from here, the performers. And I am able to say, this is where you get the best burger, this is where you get the best donuts, this is where you get the best, tap beer, you know, and say, this is our new brewery, go check it out, because, you know, that brings people all over the country. So if you can get people to talk more, not about the old stuff, but actually the new stuff that's happening in rural communities, that's it. I mean, that's all I care about. Because I think that that's where we're not talking about the new. We think that rural is just old and dying. And it's really like, no, actually there's a lot of people coming in and they're starting businesses in their second career or third career. They're, you know, taking a passion, making a business out of it. We should really be focusing more on that, just to help keep things going up rather than the other way.
So I think arts can be kind of a mystery to folks. Visual arts can be intimidating, they can be challenging to know how to appreciate, but they're almost the easiest part of art to understand. It's an image on a wall that's just screaming at you to look at it. Literary arts can be a little bit more difficult. Poetry, spoken word, the written word. These things can be difficult for people to know how to appreciate, know what they like, know what they understand, make sure that they're getting what they're supposed to get. So this is kind of a way for people to come in, and maybe there's one thing that they understand but not a lot of other things. They can start with the one and we can all kind of get there together.
I think we're supposed to expand our horizons, and sometimes you just have to go out of your way to invite people in and new ideas, and then see who gravitates towards that and latches on.
Thanks for watching. Join us again on Common Ground. If you have an idea for Common Ground in North Central Minnesota, email us at legacy@lptv.org or call 218-333-3014. To watch Common Ground online, visit lptv.org and click Local Shows. Episodes or segments of Common Ground, call 218-333-3020. Production funding of Common Ground was made possible in part by First National Bank Bemidji, continuing their second century of service to the community. Member FDIC. Common Ground is brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, with money by the vote of the people November 4th, 2008. If you enjoy watching Common Ground online, please consider making a tax-deductible donation at lptv.org.